Hello, and welcome to PHI 1600 Studies in Applied Ethics. My name is Dave Monroe, and I'll be your professor for this online class. And I just wanted to do this brief video to introduce the class, what it's about, to show you around a little in my courses so you know kind of what to look for and how the class will work. There is a separate video that addresses how to access the textbook, which is vitally important because the textbook is required for every module in this class. It's an imperative that you use it as you go through the course. So reading is required, and having access to the e-textbook is going to be crucial to your success. So make sure that you check out that other video on accessing the textbook that I send forthwith. So what is this class about? Just to give you a sort of brief teaser. The title is Study in Applied Ethics, which means we're going to do some thinking about what ethics is about, which is namely good and bad, right and wrong. Okay, so ethics is the study of morality, we might say, and thinking about those important values that animate life, that frame the way that we see things, sort of form the backbone of our value structures and beliefs about the world. So we'll look at some sort of fundamental questions about the nature of what's morally good and bad and right and wrong. When I say we'll look at them, we're going to study them as an object, right, in the way that you'd study any other subject. So what this isn't, just to give you guys a heads up, is a class where we're looking to indoctrinate you into one specific point of view, where the aim is to tell you what good and bad, right and wrong consist in. That's not the goal here at all. The aim here is to help you understand a spectrum of different points of view about morality. Right? And there are going to be different understandings of what good and evil or good and bad and right and wrong consist in. The whole point of these is to help us figure out how to live a morally appropriate life, right? So over the years, there have been lots of different answers to those questions. What's good and bad? How should I live? What does it mean to be a good person? And so on. And part of the goal of this class is to help us understand some of those key concepts. Again, not to convince you that any one way of thinking is the right one, but to show you that there's a possible spectrum of ideas about what it means to be a good person and do the right thing, so that we understand these frameworks to help us make actual decisions in our lives. So sort of going hand in hand with that, this class on the applied side is about helping you develop critical thinking skills that will enable you to make better ethical decisions, right? So that sort of goes hand in hand with these different frameworks about what good and bad consist in and what it means for an action to be right or wrong. Because we're inevitably and unavoidably confronted with moral decisions in our lives. We have to make choices that have ethical implications and ramifications, not just for us, but for other people that we care about, and maybe even the world as a whole, right? So the ultimate goal of this class is to help you become a better critical thinker about these kinds of ethical issues. And to do that, we're going to introduce you to some moral decision-making strategies. We're going to introduce you to some ethical theories that give us these frameworks about good and bad, right and wrong. And then we'll look at a range of contemporary ethical social issues that will give us the opportunity to practice these skills that we're developing. So up front, recognize that this is a class that's primarily about learning how to think, less than it is about memorizing facts. So it's not a history class as such, where you're going to be thinking about things that happened. There'll be a little bit of that. It's more a class that's focusing on developing and practicing the skill. So you'll find that some of the things that we do repeat themselves, but that's because repetition breeds mastery, right? So the more we practice these skills, the better we get. Now, no one's a perfect ethical thinker, and all of us make moral mistakes. But the idea is, if we practice these skills, when we sort of confront these issues in real life, we'll have already given them some thought in advance, and we'll at least have some resources to help us come to better ethical decisions. So that's ultimately what PHI 1600 is about. Now, as you're no doubt aware, this is also an online class, which means that you'll be doing all of your work basically at home virtually. Now, we may have the occasional synchronous meeting session, which means in real time, but the format of this class is meant to be asynchronous, meaning you can work on it at any time and we don't have any sort of scheduled designated meeting points. However, the class isn't exactly self-paced. I've got it set up so we'll work through about one module a week, and some modules will be heavier or lighter in terms of the amount of workload that you can expect. But all of them are set up basically the same, where you'll have some reading to do, you'll have some videos to watch, some notes to review that can kind of help you organize your thoughts, and then some assignments to complete, usually something like a quiz and almost certainly a discussion forum where you'll engage in discussion on these topics with your peers, and oftentimes some extra credit to help buff your grade up if you like, or to help reinforce the materials you're going through. So we'll basically do one module a week throughout the term, and that's more or less the pacing, right? And one module basically equals one chapter, right? Note that we won't cover every chapter in the moral compass. I've selected ones that I think are the key ones, and then some social issues that I think are timely and meaningful and worth discussing. So those are the kinds of things that we'll work through. And I'll show you where to find the modules and how those are all set up in just a second. Now, we also have to reconcile ourselves to the fact that the world is anything but normal right now, right? We're all dealing with this pandemic in various ways. I mean, one nice thing about having an online class is that you don't have to come into a classroom full of people, and that's great. It keeps social distancing at a maximum as much as possible. But that doesn't mean that things aren't still going to get messy for you guys, and potentially for me. Who knows, right? Everything's sort of up in the air as far as people's health is concerned. So while it's true that we're doing basically a module a week or going through a chapter a week, and the due dates for the assignments are basically set when we finish each chapter. For the duration of this term, I will accept late work without penalty, right? With the exception of discussion forums, because those are going to be how we measure attendance. But you want to review that part of the syllabus very, very carefully, the attendance policy and the late work policy, because they're sort of vital to keeping on course, right? You don't want to fall behind if you can avoid it. But I'm not going to penalize you guys for late work on anything except discussion forums, because those are sort of live and need to carry on as we go. But if you get sick, hey, look, man, there's a pandemic going on. Totally get it. If you need another week or two to make up an assignment, that's fine, right? So the absolute deadline for everything, I think, will be April 25th. And that's already set up in my courses. So if you fall a little bit behind, that's okay. You'll still be able to catch up, but try to stay on pace. We'll be doing through one module a week, right? And if you keep on that pace, you should be good. Okay, well, let me share my screen and show you guys a little bit of what my courses is all about and how things are set up. Here we go. When you log in, you'll see this. The home page for our ethics class. You notice that there's quite a few people in here, which is great because I've lumped a bunch of sections together. So you have lots of opportunities for conversation with people. But to get to all the important stuff that you're going to need, you'll want to click into the course content area here. And when you click into course content, that will open up the table of contents that shows you sort of where to find everything in the course. Now, this is laid out more or less, and I think more rather than less, sequentially, right? So it kind of starts with where you want to begin and then proceed through the class. Now, there are some small exceptions here, like the virtual office and the social module. Those aren't necessarily essential to the class, but you want to start with the Start Here module, which will sort of explain the resources at your disposal. It has links to things like online learning resources, like writing formatting, personal life services if you're having issues like with your health or living situation, that sort of stuff. It's all sort of laid out in the Start Here module, along with a tutorial introduction to my courses, which if this is your first online class, you should absolutely do. It will help you understand how this learning management system works much better. And that will enable you to be a lot more successful as you navigate this particular course. You'll be able to focus more on the content and worry less about the platform. So if you haven't taken an online class before, please do the introduction to my courses that you find in the Start Here module. You'll access the textbook through the Barnes & Noble course materials. Again, there's a separate video that talks through how all of that works, but we have an ebook for this class, and its access is built into this course. In order to access it, you need to register for a McGraw-Hill Connect account, which is free. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will give you access to this McGraw-Hill Connect widget, which basically is where you'll find the e-textbook, The Moral Compass, right? So Watch the video on how to get access to the textbook and do that straight away. You'll also want to very carefully download and read the syllabus. Right, so this lays out all of the expectations. It has all of the important information for your class. You'll want to download this and keep it for your records. You may need it someday down the road, say when you transfer to another institution. They may want to see if they can give you credit for ethics, and you'll want to be able to show them this to show them what you learned and the material that you covered. So hang on to this. It's a good practice for all of your classes to keep your syllabi. But you'll go through this, read it, make sure you hit me with any questions you have about my expectations and the kinds of assignments and so on. And then have a look around my courses and just sort of orient yourself to how it's all set up, right? So you can see it's laid out week 1, week 2, week 3, and so on. So that's essentially the path that we'll take through the course materials. When you click into one of these modules, you'll see they're laid out more or less as I described earlier. So each chapter has this kind of overview. This is what we'll talk about this week, and then a checklist of things to complete. So read the chapter, right? That's a really important thing, guys. I can't stress it enough. I know lots of times you guys try to shortcut on the reading. That's not a great idea, because I'm assuming that you guys have done the reading before you approach the assignments, right? So read the chapters, download and review the notes, and watch the videos. You'll find in each module some learning materials that will include things like notes and videos for your access and your edification. And then complete the assignments. So each module will start with the learning materials and then proceed to the assignments. And you'll see that those assignments all have due dates. Again, the hard end of these is April 25th. If for whatever reason you fall a bit behind, that's okay. But that's where you'll find stuff. Now note, when you log into my courses, you might find that your modules are closed like this, right? Or the content. In order to open up closed folders, all you have to do is click this little triangle over here on the right-hand side of that bar, and the content will drop down, right? I understand my courses is a little bit clumsy as learning management systems go. There's a lot of scrolling and a lot of clicking to get to places, which is why the introduction of my courses is pretty useful. But that's basically how things are set up. If you need to email me, the fastest way to do it, because whoops, it's like I clicked out of your class. Here we go. If you need to email me, the fastest way to do it is to come to the home page. Let's see here. Come to the home page and you'll see a little button up here at the top that says email faculty. If you click on that, it will open up an email to me and just fire it away. I do want to let you guys know that I take responding to emails and communicating very seriously. I think it's important that you guys have timely feedback. And so I believe you'll find that I'm a very quick and efficient grader, that I give feedback that I hope is helpful. And I do so in a timely fashion. I know one of the great frustrations of people who take online classes is slow communication, and that's not my thing. I tend to respond very quickly. If you do decide to visit me during my online office hours, my responses will be virtually instantaneous, unless I'm tied up doing something with another student. Typically, I'm live and active, and away I go. And my office hours are listed in the My Courses virtual office area. I do want you guys to understand that we will talk about some controversial subjects in this class. Right? We're talking about good and bad and right and wrong. And we have different points of view about those things. And all of you guys come to the table with some beliefs in hand already. Right? So you already have very, I think, somewhat well-defined views about what good and bad are and how we should live and what makes a good person a good person. Right? I can't stress enough that because this class is about controversial things, we have to remember to treat each other with respect. And that applies in all online communication. That would be discussion forums, emails, and so on. I will be respectful to you in any communication, and I expect you to be respectful to your fellow students and to me in return. It's possible for reasonable people to disagree about really important things. And furthermore, people can disagree without that making them enemies, right? Our political discourse has set a pretty poor example of this in the last decade and a half or so. and this sort of polarization that if someone disagrees with you, they're automatically your enemy, or they're automatically crazy, irrational, or whatever. That's just not true. The simple fact of disagreement doesn't mean that people can't disagree in respectful and considered ways, right? Aristotle once said, the famous ancient Greek philosopher, you'll learn some things about this term, once said, the mark of an educated mind is the ability to entertain a thought without accepting it, meaning reasonable people should be able to step back and think about ideas and points of views different from their own without necessarily having to accept it, but being able to understand why someone else might believe that. Right? So that's one of the important critical thinking skills that we'll work on this semester, is what we call being fair-minded, being willing to consider other points of view, even if we don't agree with them. And in all of our communication, one sign of respect is to remember it's possible to disagree with ideas while being respectful to the person who holds them. And it's that standard that I'll hold us all to. So we'll have zero tolerance for sort of abusive, mean-spirited, or nasty disagreement. But what we do want to have is good dialogue about these questions, because we may just learn something about another point of view that we didn't know, and that may just change the way that we think, right? So please do keep all of your communications respectful and considerate of other people, but don't hesitate to disagree. That's perfectly okay in this class, all right? Well, if you have any questions, please hit me with an email. You'll also see in the syllabus that I have a Google Voice number. If you want to send me text messages to that, please identify yourself and let me know that it's okay to respond. Yeah, I've got an office phone number. You can call me there. Now, to be honest, I tend to screen my phone calls just because you get so much spam these days. But if you call and leave me a message, I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Yeah, I'm here for you. If you find anything confusing, ask first before proceeding. If anything's unclear, reach out for me to help. My whole job is to help you succeed in this class. But in order to do that, you have to communicate with me to let me know where and how I can help, right? So please don't hesitate to reach out. That's my job. And I look forward to working with you throughout the semester. Again, welcome to PHI 1600 Studies in Applied Ethics.